I buy faulty electronic items, attempt to fix them, and sell them for a profit. But Joey, where do you log all of that profit? Right here in Sally's spectacular spreadsheet. Welcome your faces back to episode number 10, season 2 of the series Profit or Loss. So 10 episodes in, an actual profit of 172.91. But before we get into the nitty gritty of the repairs today, we have a few little updates. The Xbox One S from episode number 9, get this, sold for £61.43 after the fees. Meaning from episode 9, I thought we were going to make a loss of £9, but instead we made a profit of £2.44. This equates to 70p an hour. Regardless, a profit is a profit. Let's see if we can continue that unbeaten run today. When I say unbeaten run, the run is now 1 episode of profit. Let's make it 2. The first item is a PlayStation 5 that I paid a total of £100 for. This is part of the care package that I actually spent the £250 on. Do you remember I looked at the Xbox One S from last stream? So this is from the same person, but now we actually have PS5s. We have 2 PS5s here. So we're going to take a look at this PlayStation 5. Now, supposedly, this PlayStation 5 doesn't have a display. So I'm really hoping we're actually going to be able to fix it and make a nice profit. They have been gone into before. So somebody has attempted a repair on the PS5s, which is why I was kind of able to haggle it down a little bit more than what was expected, you know. PS5 Uno number 1. I haven't got my hands on a new PS5 Pro, no. I did, however, see Tronics Fix drop a PS5 Pro. I said, Steve, Lord, a glove. What's going on? But I fully understand for the content. PS5, no display. Let's see what the situation is. I'm going to take the side off. Now this one, oh. Should we say a prayer? I think we might need to say a prayer. Okay, let's just make sure that it actually turns on first. That's going to be our first thing, isn't it? Actually, wait, I just want to have a look and see. The port itself looks okay. I'm getting ahead of myself here and thinking that they're actually going to turn on. Is that, it must be this way then. It is that way. Right, ready? Beeps on. Does it stay on? Does it go to a white light? We need to see it go to a white light. Apparently, both of the PlayStation 5s will go to a white light, but there will be no display. White light. It's making a beep. I mean, it's making a beep like there's a disc in there. Let me try again. It's weird, hey, how it just got one beep. It's weird how I got one beep. Let me see if there is a display. Yeah, it's not picking anything up. So we definitely have no display. So I'm not going to act surprised that somebody's been inside it, because I'm fully aware that somebody's been inside the console. Let's turn it off. I'm a little bit confused though how I'm pressing the button for the eject and nothing is ejecting. And I'm slightly worried because we had the liquid damage and it was supposedly around the side. So look, if I show you this is the casing, and can you see the casing goes on like this? Oh wait a minute, no, we don't have much there. So where does it go? It goes at the back here. That's where it goes, up here. All right, so let's just bear that in mind. Let's get this one torn down. PS5. Come alive. This, by the looks of it, is a this is going to be a model 1016A, I believe. Yep, 1016A, because it's the OG. It's the OG. Now, how OG? Because there are 2 different revisions of the motherboard, and I'm pretty sure the only thing that it depended on was where was it made. Some of them you have like a bit of thermal putty. Missing a screw here. Some of them you had a big bit of thermal putty, which makes it a nightmare to actually take apart. I think we're missing 2 screws actually. That is the wrong screw to go in there. Oh dear, look at this. So that screw that I've just pulled out, as you can see, we should have had that screw. So that's going to be an interesting one. Okay, we're not looking too bad, you know, considering the fact that we had those markings. We've got a little bit of a bend in the wire. That's okay. Has this disk drive been opened before? No, the disk drive hasn't. I am just going to push my luck here, and I'm going to see if we've got a disk in here, because again, it was making that whirring sound, but it wasn't ejecting anything. So let's just see. The way you can get these out is you can put just a Phillips down here, and you can twist it. However, I don't know what way it is to twist. But clearly, I don't think we've actually got a disc in here, because I'm doing it both ways and nothing's happening. Potentially, we're looking at HDMI, but I think it's going to be deeper than that. I think it's going to be deeper than that from what I can recall from the emails. Let's take this off. How bad are we looking? Am I going to see like signs of flux and all sorts of bits and bobs? Nah, it's not that bad. I've seen a million times worse. Now, I was also notified these are potentially stripped, and it does look like they have been stripped. So I'm just going to have to be super... Oh no, he said he put them in loose, which is amazing. Yeah, that is super loose. Thank you very much, Michael, by the way, if you're watching this. He said he put them in loose because I think somebody previous has stripped them. So thank you, Michael. That made my life a million times easier, so I appreciate you. So I can see some of the stuff going around here, so it's gonna be interesting. I think Michael may have put a little bit of thermal paste on, because sorry, not thermal paste, liquid metal, because obviously it didn't work, so didn't bother putting the stuff back on as much as he needed to. Okay, so let's take the board out and let's have a butcher's over on yonder scope. I don't even know if that's a real sentence, is it? Okay, I'm unaware if the HDMI retimer has been changed. There is a lot of flux around here, but I don't know if that flux is from the HDMI port itself. But that does... I don't know if that's been replaced, if I'm being honest. If it has been replaced, it's a very good job because that all looks connected to me. I think that's either factory or a very good job. I'm just going to triple check that we have our components. I'm just going to quickly visually inspect the board to see if there's any flux anywhere else, to see if any other areas have been worked on before I solely check into that circuit. Doesn't look like it, and the console stays on. So flip it over. Let's have a flip over so we can see all of this flux, yeah? Does it look like this component has also been swapped? Potentially. Now, I've only had it once whereby a PlayStation 5 no display I haven't been able to get working. There are cases of it happening. I've also had it where this component I've had to swap out. First things first, who can guess what I'm about to do first? Lick it. So many people said lick it. What's going on? What I want to do is give it a clean because there's a lot of flux there, and it makes it hard to see solder connections when you've got a lot of flux. Like, you can't really see any of that stuff. So we're just going to blast 480, come in with microfiber cloth, and just clean up some of this flux that we have in this area so I can get a better look. I've got my fume extractor on because health is wealth. It looks like a completely different board. A little bit of heat, a little bit of IPA, and a trusty microfiber cloth. It looks brand new. Looks like nobody's touched it. And now, do you know what? I'm actually confident in saying I don't think anybody's touched that component. Crazy, isn't it? How like a little bit of a clean can just be like deceptive. Like a Decepticon transformer. You see what I'm saying? Now what I'm going to do is exactly the same on a Panasonic IC, the HDMI retimer. So again, look at the state of this. Come in with a little bit of heat. A little bit of heat. Not too much. Enough so that maybe when I put it on, it crackles a little bit, but not too much. And just a tad of IPA. And my microfiber. Now, when you do microfiber, what I'm doing here is more of a push down and squeeze rather than a scrub, because you can take components off. So you do need to be, if you're using this method, you need to be super careful. And look at that. Look how much better that looks, hey? It's crazy. Look, I don't think somebody's replaced that. I think that's factory. I think there was just a lot of flux from the HDMI port change. Now, let's zoom into the HDMI port and see how we're looking. I can already tell you maybe, well, we're missing the cap. That's not going to make a massive difference because it does just filter it. It's a filtering cap. I think pin 19 isn't attached to the board, is what I'm going to say. I've not touched anything yet, but I think this pin over here is not attached to the board. I could be wrong. What did I say? I didn't even touch it. I knew that that was the case. And it's literally that. Now, let me tell you something. Some of these pins are connected. Most of them. If not all, right? These ones look fine. These ones are connected. This one not being. All this needed was this to be soldered down, and it would have worked. You'll have a lot of repair shops that would call this adequate. A lot of repair shops. I reckon you'd find maybe 80% of repair shops out there would do a job like this. Why do you think I'm saying that? It's because I used to work at a repair shop, and I used to have jobs like this come in from people saying, I took this to a repair shop. So I know that it happens a lot. For me, this is a much below adequate job. If you are a professional in a repair shop and you provide this as a service, personally, I think this is below what it should be. The melted plastic is not necessarily a huge issue because it's not conductive. So the plastic isn't going to make a difference here, other than it just makes it look quite bad. If you look at this from a standpoint of here, at face value, which is up here, you can't tell the difference. You know, so it's not botched at all. It could work, and I've seen 10 times worse that work. We're missing the cap as well, which obviously isn't great because it's a filtering cap. As a hobbyist, right? If that was like one of your first, not one of your first. If that was one of your first jobs, if I was a professional repair shop, I'd hire you on the spot. If that was one of your first jobs as a hobbyist, or like you are a hobbyist doing it, yeah, of course, that's a great job. All you needed to do was just solder that last pin. That was it. That's all. And there's obviously a lot more tips and stuff that you could take along the way, but in terms of actually getting it up and running as a hobbyist. And now what I'm going to try and do is make it good. And I'm going to talk you through this process of how I tidy these things up. Let's have a butcher's. What do you think we're going to do first? We are going to give this 480 degrees Celsius, airflow speed 99%. I've also not checked the back of the board to see if we still have the diode and cap on the back. But I'll check that after I've done the job, because I just want to make sure that we've got a good port on. I'm going to hazard a guess that this is in fact leaded solder as well. The flux that they've used is not like a plumber's flux. I do believe it is some sort of soldering flux, but we're just going to give it a nudge. It's clearly not ready yet. So 480 degrees Celsius, 99% airflow. Slowly and surely, we'll get this up. There we go. So you can see now, I'm just going to lift the port off. There we go. I'm just going to clear the ground holes. I don't need to clear out the pads because, again, I believe that it's going to be leaded solder, and I think that's going to do just fine. However, when it comes to the ground pads, if somebody's had a bad extraction of the previous port, it can leave like little shards of metal and other things in the ground holes. So what I'm going to do now is come in with my solder sucker and remove the solder that we have in these holes, because I just want to make sure that the solder that I put in is going to be okay. Now, there was a lot of solder in that one. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of solder in here. you can see these ground holes have been damaged. You don't have to use a solder sucker. It's just the method that I prefer, to be honest. I've been there with a wick for 30 minutes, and it's not my preferred method, if I'm being honest with you. Board's still hot. So, as we done before with the other flux that was left over, drop of IPA, and our microfiber cloth. And that is looking really nice. Now, we're going to come in with the flux here, in the ground holes as well. Now, again, this is going to be quite difficult because all of those ground holes have been damaged. So I am going to have to put a lot of solder here. That's why they might have put a lot of solder previous. What I think's happened is they've tried to maybe get the soldering iron down into the holes. They've pretty much broken them. That's what I think's happened. So if I go to add solder in here now, we're going to look okay. Yeah, we look all right. We do all right. So they don't look broken after you obviously put solder in them. Now, what I like to do is I like to get the solder to ride all the way up the HDMI port legs, but I'm unsure if that's going to happen because of the fact of how damaged these are. So I'm not going to be super upset if that doesn't occur. Now what I'm going to do is just use my soldering iron and replenish this solder. Now what that's done, I don't know if you noticed this, but where the cap goes, which is here, there wasn't enough solder here. So if I go to put a cap on and there's not enough solder here, that cap isn't going to stick. Whilst the flux is still warm and the board is hot, I'm just going to clean that up. And then I'm going to visually inspect and just make sure what I've done so far is all okay. I also don't want people to be disheartened because they might look at this and think, well, Joe, you're talking about it and you're talking like it's really easy to do. It's not. I've been doing it for a few good years now, you know. It can be very, very difficult, and I mess things up daily still. Joey, there's a bad trace. I don't think there is. I think they're okay. And I think what Emily's talking about is one of these ones. So if we zoom in, there is copper missing from these traces, but the traces aren't actually... Oh, wait a minute. Is that a bad one there, or is that... No, that's ground. So this one's ground. But I can see there is a little bit of copper missing here. But yeah, this is a ground trace, so that'll be fine. And the trace is going to here. So these look okay to me. But it's a really good spot, Emily. It might be when they ran the iron over or something like that and they just took up a little bit of the conformal coating. And it's naturally going to be weaker because it's on this big ground pad here. Yeah, we're going to put the cap back. So I'm going to grab a donor board now. Actually, do you know what? I think I've got some of the caps. I've got a pack of the PS5 HDMI caps. So I don't need to go scavenging donors. A lot of different ways to do this. Some people might do it with a soldering iron. A really small soldering iron. So I like to come in with a little bit of flux just here. Not too much. Just a tiny bit. And I'm going to do the exact same. I'm going to heat underneath the board at 480 degrees Celsius with an airflow speed of 99%. I'm just going to heat that up. And when I see that flux melt a little bit, which is going to be very, very soon, I'm going to prepare the cap. Get off. With my tweezers. And wait for that solder to wet a little bit. Which is going to be any second now because, again, this is leaded solder. So it shouldn't take too long. There we go. I'm going to put the cap down here. And hold it in place. Come off the heat. Wait for that to solidify. Then remove the tweezers. And now I'm just going to reflow it. Now, the pads are a little bit skew-whiff here, so I'm unsure if this is going to work properly first time, but we'll have a look. There we go. See it pop into place? That's all we have to do. That's it. We don't have to push it in. We don't have to get our soldering iron and check to make sure it's all good. That is now okay. And if I tilt the board up, you should be able to see that it is indeed sat on the pads and soldered nicely. We grab a HDMI port. Now, you don't have to do this, but I like to. I tin them. It just ensures that we have a nice connection here. And 9 times out of 10, I don't actually... Well, I say that. 9.9 times out of 10, I don't need to go over the connections on the board because the solder is that's tinned on the port joins the board very nicely. I'm going to flux up here again. Now, this for me is a bit too much flux, so I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. 480 degrees Celsius, airflow speed 99%. You guys are going to get sick of hearing that, I think. I'm just going to heat the board. Here we go. Heat from underneath, just back and forth. And we should see in a second the leaded solder melt. And we're not going to put it on straight away because what I want to do is I want to wait for all of the pads to be molten as well, which can take a little bit longer. However, on this occasion, the pads, can you see the pads are glistening? That's really good. And then we're just waiting for these two on the right to go. There they go. There goes one. There goes two. And now we put the port on. Just like that. And back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now I can't really see here, so I'm going to guesstimate what the situation is, which is never really good. What we can do, in fact, is just put that solder in, that heat gun down for a second, and put something at the base of the board, which will lift it and give me a little bit better of a visual. I'm going to move the port around and just make sure we've got a solid connection here. Oh no. I accidentally flipped it, but that's okay. Cap's still okay as well. Right, I think we're okay. I can't really see though. I think we're alright. I'll check it in a sec. Come off the heat. There we go. It's solid. Now what I'm going to do is just lift that board up a sec and make sure we've got it in a good position, which it looks like we have. Position-wise, it's fine. Cap is fine because it's still on exactly where it needs to be. It's just been knocked north a little bit, but I'll show you that in a second. Now what we need to do is move quick. Move the scope here. Why do we move quick? because whilst the flux is hot, we can give this a nice clean. That cap is still securely down. Now that solder is failing to come through those ground holes, which again is not something that I really like, but because the copper has been taken up from the ground holes, it's going to be really, really difficult to sort that. Can you see there's still quite a bit of flux? So what I'm going to do is come back in with a hot air gun for a couple of seconds, just to melt that flux. Not melt the solder or melt the port. And we come in with a new cotton swab and just clean it up. And then we can come in with IPA if we need to. But there we go. And that should be all gravy. And now we take a look inside the port. There we go. The cap's fine. Cap's fine. I understand why you would think that the cap is in trouble, but the cap's fine. The cap's still on the line. You see that? Where we have a slight issue here, because the copper has been rammed here, you can see that we can't get the solder all the way through. And you know what? Even if we did, because the connection for ground is the other side, it's not going to do great here because there's nothing to connect it to inside the hole. And it's pretty much the same with this front leg here, but there's a bit more that's pushing up. This side, I think we have it a little bit better. Yeah, you can see that some of the copper is still coming through the board. So we've got a good connection on this leg and this leg. We look at the back here. Ah, see, what are we missing? I will just tidy up these on the back, but what are we missing? Who can tell me what we're missing here? We are indeed missing a diode. And now we can give it a nice clean. Now I look at this, I look at the back as well, and I think, oh, this could be a lot cleaner, right? How are we going to achieve that? Hot air, IPA. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any of the diodes new, so that will have to be a donor. But we're missing a diode here. What I'm going to do is just put a little bit of flux here and put some leaded here and leaded here. And I want a good amount. All right, here are thou diode, but I actually need to turn it around. I also need to be careful here not to heat up too long because the port will fall out. Airspeed now down to 50% with a drop of flux, and that should put itself in its place. There we go, that's all it needs. And a nice clean to finalize, and then we can give this a test. We're just going to do a quick test before I go ahead and put it back together fully. 3, 2, 1. Power's on, good. We hope anyway it goes to a white light. Now I need to sort my monitor out twice, because for some reason it does it 2 times over. Do we get a HDMI display? Here we go, it's looking good. There it is. We have a display. Lovely jubbly. So we're going to turn this off now. It's a really nice profit. I just need to make sure the disk drive works actually, because if the disk drive doesn't work, I'm going to be disgusting. No, it doesn't take the disk. Okay, let's go ahead and turn it off and inspect what the situation is with the disk drive. Is this cable okay? Yeah, it looks okay. Cable looks okay. So it must be the drive. I'm not very good when it comes to disk drives. Oh, that's pretty clean. There doesn't seem to be any signs of like corrosion. There's no corrosion on here at all. It looks really clean. Should be. I don't know if that's meant to be locked or not. Is that meant to be locked in there? Should be free. Okay. So that should be free. So these little cogs as well. That seems to be nice and springy. It works by the disc pushing in the rollers, which then activates the motor when the disc pulls. Is there a chance that the board has failed? This one? Is there a chance that this board can fail? Because that's a switch, right? So what should happen is when that pushes in, that activates, sends a signal to this board. Is that correct? One prong on each side in resistance mode. And push it in, see what happens. Is that right? We put one there, one there. Okay. That seems okay then, yeah. Because I've got the resistance here. Overload, push it in. 1 ohm. Alright, so that's continuous. Let's check this one. All good. And this one. All good. Okay, so we know that board's okay. So I can put that back. Make sure we got a continuous path from left to right. Yeah, we have continuity on that fuse. So fuse is okay. Any more fuses this side? Doesn't look like it. I get a beep RVNR. So I'm assuming that I get a suffice amount of power to it. Could be assuming wrong, obviously, but it could also be the cable. I get 12 volts on this connector. And I get, do I get 12 volts here? Yeah, I get 12 volts here. This is so strange. So now I don't get a beep. I was getting a beep. So now I don't get a beep. Yeah, I'll swap the room and cables. Okay, we have power. It was the cable. It's not meant to be doing this right now. Still won't take a disc though. Is that because, have I not got something plugged in correctly with this? Need to remove that top lid and push the laser back. Okay, mate, thank you. Okay, so move it back. Right. The white pin is not in the slot. Ah, interesting. I never knew that. That makes so much sense. Phil, thank you. Ah, it makes so much sense. Look. So it would have just been, so basically I could have avoided all this if I just swapped the cable. But I looked at the cable and I had no need to swap it. It looked all right. Let's see first off, is it going to take the disc? Yes. A little bit slow for my liking. But again, it's going to make quite a racket. And then, is it going to read? Yes! So the console does work. The disk drive does work. That is wicked. Because there would have been a reason why this doesn't work. And yeah, look at the deep grooves at level 7. We can see here that one seems to be pretty damaged. So it could be, compared to all the others, look at that. So it could be that this was too deep to actually make a connection with the board. There's no point in doing continuity, because if I measure here to the other side, it's most probably going to work, because I'll be putting pressure on this pin. It could just be that it wasn't making a connection. I'd probably put my money on that. Should I check what version it is? 21.02.04.02. You might be thinking, well, why is this information important? Well, because of certain things that people can do with lower firmware versions of a console, it significantly increases the price of said console. This specific one I had was version 4.02, which is very low, thus increasing the price of the PS5. How much exactly? I have no idea. What I can show you is that I've listed it as an auction and somebody has already bid £230, as well as the fact we have 6 people watching. So let's head on over to Sally's Spectacular Spreadsheet and try and get a rough profit with this one. I think we've made good money today. Episode number 10 now, of course. Disc PS5. Stick the order number in there. The best part, cost £100. The port itself is £1. Estimated sell price, what I'm going to say, estimated is £250. How accurate it's going to be, I've got no idea. I'm going to say £250, and then hopefully by the time we hit the next episode, I can tell you exactly how much it sold for. So let's go £250. Postage on this as well will be special delivery, so that's going to be 17, 18 quid. So we're looking at 108.51 positive for one item fixed today. Hours worked, it was a stream. I'm going to say 2.5. Realistically, I don't think it would have taken that long if I was working on it on my own, but because I was live streaming this one, I wanted to explain the process a little bit more, which, by the way, let me know in the comment section if you prefer when I actually go through and explain my method and how I do my soldering, or would you rather the quick fixes and try and wrap it up as quick as possible? Depending on how the sale goes, we could be looking at around about £254 in the positive after today's episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy it, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and as always, I shall see you in the next one. Peace.